What is up, Growth House Podcast? I'm here with my good friend, Blair Collins. Blair, how are you?
I'm doing good.
So I'm really excited to dive into like your story. We're going to talk a lot about, different things, mindset, solopreneur, and how you kind of scale your business. You've done a lot. And so for the audience that doesn't know you, how would you describe yourself and, where you're at currently with business and life?
Yeah, so I started entrepreneurship when I was about 16. I started my first business um doing cleaning houses, and then during the day I would clean houses, go to school, and then at night I worked as a busser. And so that was when I was about 16, so it was 20 something years ago. And then I started my first tech company at 19. That did not go so well. It
I
couldn't
didn't even
have
know
gone
this.
any worse.
Walk me through that. At 19 years old, you started a tech company. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I can't even remember what year this is. Probably in 2005, 2005, 2006, I was living in Silicon Valley. So everybody started a tech company. I'm sure, have you ever heard of virtual assistants?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody has. So we were one of the first people to kind of like create almost like the operating procedures for that and the standards for that using voice over IP. I'm sure most people nowadays don't even know what voice over IPs are. And then after that, uh, it was just such a miserable thing. I didn't really know how to scale a business. It was pretty cutthroat back then, especially in tech. And then, so I started a real estate company when I was 23. So a few years after, or a couple years after that. So I parlayed what I knew there into real estate.
And then what
And
kind of real
then
estate company was that?
it was a holding company. So I would purchase single family homes. And I did a few fix and flips. They're not my favorite. I still don't know why people like doing that. I think it's completely miserable. Um, However, it was it was like the hardest possible way, I think, to make money in real estate when I mostly did long-term holds. So I
Hmm.
purchased single family homes, put tenants in it, and then after a few years, I'd sell a few of the assets. But I sold that company, I'm going to say 5 years ago. Yeah, about 5 years
Okay.
ago now. It's been a long time.
And then what did that company look like at its peak?
So, um, it was really difficult. I was, when I started, I was married really young, and so I had a lot of issues in my marriage at the time. So I didn't have a lot of support. I pretty much weren't. I wasn't really allowed to network or talk to essentially men. So everything that I learned was from books and listening to podcasts, YouTubes, things like that. So at its peak, let's see, how many did we own? So I owned 70 with my partner, 70 homes with my partner. I owned 40 by myself, and we didn't have any investors, and I personally didn't have any investors. So I worked in real estate sales.
Hmm.
And so I believe it was for every two homes I sold, I would take that and put a down payment on a home. And I just did
Hmm.
that for several years. So I lived on a really, really tight budget. And the way that I purchased my first few homes, I don't know. I don't know how like legal. It's probably not, but it is what it is. I I went back to school and got student loans and dropped out of college multiple times.
That's wild. I've heard this strategy before.
Oh my God, I'm so glad it worked out right. And then I sold my car. We had a truck at the time. I sold that because God forbid you ever drive a gas guzzler. Like it was so crazy. So I sold that. I sold like clothes on eBay. I sold all of my furniture on Craigslist, and so I ended up being able to like, gather a bunch of enough money to continue to uh, put down payments on the homes, but also I needed to fix some of the homes as well, right? So learned how to be a contractor, you know, lay tiles, lay floors, and paint. I was a great painter. I was a
So you were in the
terrible
trenches.
electrician. I mean, being 20 nothing, you're like so broke and trying to get your business started.
You're
So
like, I'll do
I would
everything.
just, I do, I do everything. I know. I needed high margins. So,
So I kind of want to stay here because a lot of our audience, loves real estate and looking to either go from W-2 and get cash flow from real estate or start their own business and scale it. So you said you kind of hustled and did whatever it took to get those first couple houses, right?
right.
After that, did you raise money? Because it sounds like you didn't have investors.
No.
How'd you scale? What was your method?
You know, what's interesting is I still couldn't tell you how to borrow money. I can go to JP Morgan or Wells Fargo or Bank of America, and I have great relationships with a couple of them. And then I had relationships with local banks. However, I have no idea how to invest. I didn't have a lot of partners either. I had partners in more like individual homes and things like that. But as
Mhm.
far as having like a 50-50 partner, I only did that maybe once or twice. Um,
So when you say
so
you had partners, what did those partners look like?
So my the holding company that I had, we wanted to scale quite quickly, and so I needed his income
Hmm.
and also his expertise in a couple different markets. So we were 50-50 on the 70 homes,
Got it.
but eventually, I took what I learned and purchased a group of my own. And so
Hmm.
we ended up selling that business. And then I sold the 40 homes that I had.
Got it.
So
So after the real
yeah,
estate, what happened after real estate?
after real estate, which was incredibly difficult, nobody told me how difficult it would be. I think it was the quickest way in your 20s to make money.
Hmm.
I'm assuming, that a lot of people listening to your podcast wanted to figure out how to break into the real estate business. I still believe that it is, I would say, the quickest way, but definitely the hardest way to do
Hmm.
it. I think now that I'm a few years out of that and into a new career, which I own franchises now and I own groups of retail stores. So I own about 6 locations, and they're natural remedy for pain relief, um, alcohol replacements, opioid replacements, Adderall, all the things. And I use natural plant medicine. So this is such an easier business that I'm in, even though it's like a very gray, difficult. But in comparison to what happened in my real estate career, I would say this has been much easier to
So
take on.
so how did you decide to pivot into like the franchise model and then also the retail stores?
So, all right. So the retail stores I had 6 of them, and then sold that, and then I started this this group. I started about 2 years ago. So I opened up about 6 locations in right about 2 years, right under 18 months or so.
Hmm.
And the franchise, the franchises that I purchased, that was on accident and also like on a whim. It was like one day I'm like, oh, I really like donuts. Like, why don't I just buy some donut shops?
Wait, you started with donut shops?
I did. I
Oh,
did.
I didn't know this.
I bought 24 licensed to donut shops because I'm like, I just really like donuts. And that was
That's
the end
something
of
I
that.
would do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's as thoughtful and strategic as that was. But my life is in a place right now where I've spent my entire life being strategic. So even though it might seem very flippant, there's not a lot I can do to fail in my life anymore, as like not, at least not financially. So I'm much more. it's not careful, because careful is not the right word. It's that I have so much experience under my belt that even if something were to happen, nothing would really happen. Like it's hard to describe that feeling. It's more like a mindset of
Hmm.
that even if I lost everything, it's not a big deal. I can build it again. I've done it multiple times.
Hmm.
So when you can do it twice, or if you could even do it once, you could do it twice. And if you could do it twice, you could do it 10 times. So,
So you did mention mindset, and I know we've talked before, like what's the most value, we can give to the audience, and you mentioned like kind of having that mindset. And so maybe we start with someone that is, just started their company, whatever industry they
right.
started, but what kind of stuff and like tactics would you say would be so super beneficial? I know, mentors were super important in your life. Where would
Yeah.
someone start as they're like, man, this sucks. I'm taking all these L's, learning lessons, not failures, right?
Yeah.
And just trying to like get themselves up, because everyone says the first 100K, the first six figures is usually the hardest. And then usually you have a community around you, mentors that can help you scale. So what would you say to those people?
I would say mindset is the number one thing that caused me to be successful. Mostly because I didn't have a lot of people believe in me in the beginning, especially when you're in your 20s, right? Where,
Hmm.
before we jumped on the podcast, I was telling you, I've gotten fired from every job I've ever had. And it's not like I had some special corporate job. Like I got fired from the Olive Garden and Cheesecake Factory, you
You
know?
are not made to be employed.
No. And so even in those times, and like I said, I had a really, really, really incredibly difficult marriage where my family didn't really believe in me, and understandably so, right? Um, Mostly because I would try so many new things. It was like I was, I had a relentless pursuit of just winning. And when I say winning, I mean, if I had a dream, I'd rather die than, than give up on it, right? So I had this mindset that it doesn't matter what life brings, I would always overcome it and I would always win. Like, I know that nowadays it's not a popular thing to talk about winning and losing, but I never really talk about losing. I only ever focus on winning. And that mindset caused me to overcome a lot of obstacles. And the obstacles that you are going to overcome isn't going to be, am I going to get enough money to fund my next project? It's like, holy cow, I have a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. I always had people that relied on me. I always took care of my family, friends, anything, right? That was part of my self-concept, was that I loved being kind, I loved being generous, I loved taking care of people, and I enjoyed providing. So I provided for a lot of people. And so a lot of the ill intent that I would feel is mostly around, people pleasing, right? Like what would people think of me if I did this? Like, I'm a woman kind of in, I grew up very religious, so it's like, oh, are they gonna think that I'm being too masculine, or are they think that I'm being too aggressive? And so there was a lot of those challenges versus like, are you going to be able to get funding for something, right? So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and misstep on your way to achieving your dreams and your way to success. And people assume that it's all these things that are outward, like, I don't know, not being able to get finances for your project. That was always a big one for me because um, I bought 40, 50 homes, so we were constantly trying to find ways to be creative. But really, what it was, looking back 10 years later, is my challenges going to be, was not about that. It was going to be about the feeling that I have to overcome those obstacles, right? Because obstacles will always be there. People will always be there to say positive and negative things because, positive reinforcement, it's wonderful, but a lot of us will people please and want that positive reinforcement. So we end up giving way to that too much. So for me, part of my self concept is it doesn't matter what people say as long as I want to hear what they're going to say to me, right? So if you tell me, I don't think that's a good idea, I would think, thank you so much for letting me know it's not a good idea. And then as soon as I walk out the door, I'll forget that you tell me that, right? So it's like learning how to break rules of accepting what people say. And that was really important for me. I've always been such a people pleaser. It's like it's almost scary. Uh, I would lose sleep. When I say lose sleep, or I would miss out on sleep because I would have to wake up early, sleep late because I didn't want somebody to be upset, or I would have all these fears that, I would get abandoned by friends or family if I didn't do, XYZ.
Hmm.
So having that heaviness on, you know, what is it called? It's like a teeter totter, right? Having that being
Hmm.
really heavy and then having that conflict with the things that I need to do to achieve my goals and my dreams, it was in constant chaos, right?
Hmm.
So along the path, I had to decide how to navigate through that. And it really came back to mindset and self concept. Self concept was the number one determining factor of, I believe, most people's success. So,
I'm actually curious. Self concept. Break that down a little bit more because that's something that I've heard before, but I don't think if someone asked me a definition, like I don't really know.
sure. That's a great question, actually. I don't think anybody's ever asked me. So, self concept is what you what you say to yourself, regardless of
Hmm.
what the situation is, right? So, who is it? Is it Henry Ford that said whether you believe it to be true or not?
I think so.
I'm gonna. It's something along the lines. Let me just paraphrase it. Whether
Yeah.
you believe something to be true or not, you're right. Right.
Hmm.
So, for example, if for my personal self concept, right, was that I would always win no matter what. And so there were things that I would repeat to myself like I'm always a winner. I'll win even if I look like I'm losing. Even when I lose, I win. It doesn't matter if I win today or I win tomorrow because I'm always going to win. Winners always win. I only know how to win. It doesn't matter what people say, it doesn't matter what it looks like because winners always win and I just so happen to be a winner, right?
So
So,
when did that start? Like I feel like that's such a powerful mindset
God,
to have.
I was like 10 years old, you know.
Really? Okay.
I knew deep down it was like there's some things in this life that I believe you learn as you get older. And then there's some things in this life that I believe is just from God and fate and the stars, right? And so me being successful was always going to be in the stars for me. It was always going to be a part of my life. And so no matter what happened along the way, I was always going to be successful. And I had a lot of obstacles, uh, growing up, and I became an orphan at a relatively young age. So all of the people that I've met along the way have guided me and helped me and loved me. I've had some people who definitely betrayed me. I almost can use the word unconditionally betrayed me. But part of self concept, right? Self concept is what do you say about a situation? So, do I harp and only carry inside of me the people that betray me, or do I harp and carry that everybody around me loves me, everybody around me always helps me, everybody around me has always believed in me and look out for my best interest, right? because it's like your reticular activating system will start to kick in, and and you'll start to search for all the things that you believe to be right or wrong, right? It's called confirmation bias. And we live in the way that I don't know if it's our ecosystem or what it is. I'm still processing through this journey, right? Of self concept and reticular activating system and confirmation bias. It's like, if I think you're upset with me, everything that you do is going to look like you're upset with me. If I
Mm,
think that you love me, everything that you do is going to be an act of love, right? So, if you gave me a note that says, I'll be home later, Jesse, if I think that you're upset with me, it's like, why was he so short with me? But if I
mm,
see it in a lens of love, and my self concept is Jesse always loves me, right? Then I'd
mm.
say, oh, well, he brought me a note just to let me know that he's coming.
That's so crazy because
So,
you're so right. Someone can say something with a certain intention, but the person receiving it, depending on how they think of them or where they're at with them, like you just said, can take it a totally different way.
right. And that's self concept. Now,
Mm,
I talked about a very, very little thing like writing a note, but then
mm,
you translate that into your career, your family, your friends, down to your love life, right? So all
mm,
of those things. I know I have a lot of challenges. Fantastic career. Love it. No matter what the challenges are, I just have a great time. And even when I don't have a great time, I'll eventually have a great time, right?
mm,
Same thing with my friends. My friends are my family. They are the best things that could have ever happened to me. They're always loving to me. Like, when I say always, I mean always. Like, there is what we may have some mishaps, but at the end of the day, it comes from love and maybe sometimes hurt, but that still is out of love, right?
mm.
So, but then I have challenges when it comes to marriage and family, right? Where it's like, well, not family, but marriage or love. And as I go through this process, it's because my self concept when it comes to that has been, from, I think, from a very young age, um, incredibly challenging. So I didn't recognize that until almost 40, that most of my challenges came from that. And I think at this point in my life, I'm pretty open about it, because it's the part in my life that I don't feel like a winner, right? And also a
Mm,
part of my life that I work on with tremendous fervor at this point, because I
mm.
know that it's something that I lack. And I lack that because even the words that I use, like my self concept around that. And so I think it's important for me to understand, and maybe for other people too, that everything is within your grasp and everything is within your control, whether it's love, career, money, success, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
friends. I know I've met some people who they really do struggle with making friends, right? I think it really has a lot to do with, at the end of the day, self concept and mindset around that.
Yeah. Man, this is so amazing. I love the transparency, and I think this is what, like, these type of conversations need to happen more because everything's so focused on business, 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 but then we forget like there's a lot to life besides this. So I want to ask you this. This is something that I've tried to figure out, still struggle with. Let me ask you this first. What do you think of balance? When I say balance, what do you think?
I think you saw me roll my eyes.
I would
I,
need to say it.
you know, let's go back to self concept, right? Let's
Mhm.
start there. Is balance important to you? Do you tell yourself that balance is important to you? And if you tell yourself that balance is important to you, my suggestion is you go find balance. I've
Mm.
I don't ever tell myself that balance is important to me. Other people tell me that balance is important to them, to then, inflict that
Yes.
mindset on me. They're inflicting that on me, right? But I mean, I'm joking about the infliction. But does that make sense? And
100%.
so if it's important to you, go find it. If it's
Yeah.
not important to you, and go find something else, right? Life is so beautiful and abundant and multidimensional and multifaceted. If you
Hmm.
think that everybody chooses to live a good life through balance, I think you'll find yourself to be right and also very wrong, right?
Mm.
So if balance is important, you might go out there and find a bunch of people that have balanced lives. And for me, I I'm a hunter. Like I love when I say hunting, I don't hunt animals. I might hunt people, but definitely not animals. Um, so I love the hunt. I love the chase. It's like I love being a lion, not because I'm maybe I think I might be able to be considered like lions are considered predatory, right? But what I'm saying is like lions go out there and they chase what they want and they rule, they rule their pride, right? And so it's like for me personally, if I brought balance in my life, it would feel a hell of a lot like chaos. Because yes, I might, spend time with friends and then family and then your loved ones and then career. It's like, oh, everybody gets 20% I'll do 20% of everything. But I don't like 20% of everything. I like 110% of everything. However, on the flip side, like one of my really close friends needs to have balance. Like if he works, he has to like play. If he plays too much, he has to work. And he lives a fantastic life. And we both live amazing, purposeful, fulfilling lives. However, it looks so different, like not even close.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people and I didn't understand for years is like everyone actually is wired different. I was like, you don't get it. Like, and also I think for me at least, I go through seasons where
Yeah,
I am locked in. This is what I'm doing. I'm working on my business, and everything else is just non-existent. And then I go through
yeah,
seasons where I'm like, I'm gonna spend time with my family a lot more. I'm gonna go on vacation. I'm gonna go travel. Still working on
yeah,
business, but just kind of not having this. I'm kind of the same way. I'm extreme in what I'm focused on in that season of my life.
right. That
So
makes sense.
for you, I'm curious. You're successful. You said that you are, you're a hunter, so you want to go after things that and chase things that you want. You already financially are kind of set. So what keeps you going? Why are you like, hey, I want to keep opening more stores. I want to keep working these 12, 13-hour days.
So just like a winner has to win or a hunter has to hunt. I mean, what are we going to do? Like the thing is again, life is so abundant and it's multidimensional and it's multifaceted, right? So it starts to get to a point where it's not necessarily even about money anymore. It's just about building, right? And
Hmm.
it's also about not just building for me. I like to build things and be creative. So I like to build things from nothing and turn it into something big. And I believe that's why when even in my 20s, I wasn't okay with having one or two or three or four or five homes. Like I wanted 70. And and in a way, I think I've always been that way, right? And people don't have to be that way. I just want to be that way. And the reason why I continue doing what I do is because number one, I enjoy it so very much. It brings me a lot of passion. It brings me a lot of purpose. I think that people are right that it's not all about work, but sometimes what I believe people fail to see is that for some people, work isn't work, it's life, right? It's
Mm.
liberty and it's the pursuit of happiness.
Hmm.
And all of my careers have brought me to my knees so that it could so that it could lift my soul, right? It's like
Mm,
all of the challenges that I've had in business are challenges that have caused me to become more strategic. I think you know, everybody knows this about me. I love game theory. I love it so much. I love strategy and philosophy, and so it's like, and you get to take all of these things that you love and then you use it and you build it in a business. Like, are there going to be challenges? 100%, right? Are you going to have bad days? Of course you are. Are you going to have the best days? Of course you are. Like, continuing to build my business and continuing to help other people build their businesses, it's really, truthfully, it's more than just fun. I'm not a huge seeker of happiness, but I'm a huge seeker of peace and purpose, you know?
mm.
So for me, I find a lot of purpose in what I do, right? So, um, the
What do you,
company that oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of purpose, how important do you think it is for people to try to find this business where they find they're able to, I guess, have their passion flow through it and feel
Mm.
like it's their purpose? Do you think it's the business? Do you think it's a vehicle, or do you think it's them actually serving and winning in a capacity that brings them fulfillment and purpose, and they become passionate about it?
I think I'm going to swing it back around to self concept, right?
Mm,
So everyone has to ask themselves the age old question: does this matter or doesn't it matter, right? So if somebody believes their work is their vehicle to help them find their purpose, that's where they're going to find it. So, but if they believe that staying home with their children or staying home with their spouse is going to bring them the purpose, then that is the thing that they, I don't ever like using the word should, but perhaps that's the place that they would want to search for their purpose because they already
mm,
believe that. And so what you believe, like, it's like thoughts become things, right? So what you believe is going to have to manifest regardless of whether or not you know you're in control. It's
mm,
like a car. If you hit the gas, whether or not you're in control or not, it doesn't stop the car from moving. So the car is moving regardless. So you just have to decide where you want to steer it. Do you want to steer in the direction of your career being your purpose, your family being your purpose, you quitting your job and becoming a monk and going down like a deeper spiritual, you know, um, deeper spiritual path to be your purpose?
mm,
Or how about, for me personally, I like to see things in sections and chunks. It helps me compartmentalize where I'm at, and it causes the anxiety to lift about what's going to happen in the future. Is perhaps your career is just your purpose now, right?
mm,
It was the same thing for me. It's, I in my early 20s I started a family, and then in my 30s it was like when my career was really, I mean, it just skyrocketed, right? And now
mm,
into my 40s, I'll be 40 soon, but now I want to have children and get married and have a family. So that's going to be a new type of purpose. And I don't know what my 50s are going to be, or 60s, but knowing that nothing is really, the only thing that's forever are the thoughts that are within you,
mm.
and what you decide to do with that. Those are really the only things that can last a long time, or forever is the word that people like to use, right? So
Hmm.
I think it would really, really, truly depend.
Yeah, I love this. Diving in deep. This is like, I feel like this is just a general, like a conversation that we would have on FaceTime or on the call with
I
each other.
know.
It's kind of a
I
look behind the
know.
curtain of like what we actually talk about, and I love it. Let's take a quick pivot. I want to talk a little bit about franchises.
Yeah.
So you started in donut franchise. That was the first one. And
So,
then
yes.
okay, then kind of continue the story and where you're at now and like the locations. And then I want to kind of ask, like, I'm going to ask you right now, and then you kind of can think about which ones you want to answer. I'm curious because a lot of people are looking to quit their corporate job, start their own business, but I think
Yeah.
franchising is an interesting model to look into. So like, what does it cost to open a franchise? Obviously, it depends what kind of industry you're going into. What's another question I had? What should someone look for when exploring different franchise options? So I'm going to have those out there, but I want to hear
Yes.
kind of that journey of how you got started in franchising.
Even though altogether I've owned about 12 or 13 locations in the business that I'm in, the natural pain relief. So that I've owned 12 actual physical stores and then one e-com, so a warehouse, right? Now I only have six. I sold six. So that model is that it's all 100% corporate owned. Excuse me. So that's 100% corporate owned. There, although I ran it very similarly to a franchise, and I'll show you, I'll go into detail as to what that means. And then I bought an actual franchise. So what that means is like I bought Yonuts, right? If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's so fun and so cute. Anyways, I love cute things, and it's really fun. It has like donuts and ice cream and just sprinkles and all the things, right? It's so
I'm
cute.
about to go get some donuts
And
after this.
I know, so I own the master franchise. What that means is, for example, let's say Subway, right? People
Yeah.
assume that when you walk into Subway, that some guy owns all of Subway, right? All the Subways in America. It doesn't work that way. Same with McDonald's. Somebody purchased the rights, the franchise rights, to put the name, the food, everything, all of the systems, all of the SOPs are given to you in this huge handbook that you write. If you don't follow these, oh my gosh, the fees that you pay, it's incredible. Um, so then what happens is you purchase the rights, you build it out, you look for a location. The location that you find, the size, everything has to be approved by corporate, right? And so whoever the the head of operations will say, "Hey, Jesse, now you can purchase this. You've signed Yona. You purchased the rights to it, and now what you're going to do is turn around and look for a location. We're going to send you a list of, let's say, contractors or consultants to help you figure out what the best possible location is. And then, so you go through that process. And when you purchase the franchise, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you purchase it, you have two options. You can either purchase it in cash or you purchase it through financing. Normally, there is like SBA loans, which is much harder to get. And then you can go to local banks and they give you a business loan. It's very similar to a mortgage. It is, I believe, the terms are less favorable because it's normally anywhere from 7 to 15 years. Sometimes you can get a company that will do 20, but the interest rates are higher, which is okay, because it's spread
Mm-hmm.
out, it's amortized. Hopefully, you're not keeping this for 20 years. And and so even if the interest rate is slightly higher, it's okay. You're going to sell it. You're not going to take on the burden of the high interest rate for 20 years. You can also refinance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or you can purchase it in cash. I personally don't I'm not a big proponent of borrowing money. And again, this is like just me. I think other people should do however they did it. So I purchased all of my franchises in cash, right? So,
And what
so
does that look like? Like, what ballpark numbers are we talking?
yeah, so this one I bought 24 license, a master franchise, and I think it was I purchased it for I think it was like over 300K or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So I
that's just
purchased
for one location.
yes. So no, I purchased the master. What a master is imagine purchasing all like kind of the rights to 20, 24, 25 licenses. So if anybody wants to come into your territory, they would
Mm-hmm.
have to give you a cut, right? They would have to give
Mm.
you, I can't remember what it is, 5 or 7% or something like that. And then in your master that you purchase, you might be required to open your own flagship store, right? Which is roughly anywhere, stores can be anywhere from 200 to 500, right? But
Hmm.
my model is somewhere about 250. So, I'm put in another 250. Again, you can get financing, and financing would be very similar to buying a master. So I did it in cash again, right? So,
Are
um,
you are you able to sell like one of the 24 licenses to someone else?
yeah, so that's kind of what you do. You have different people purchase like licenses, and then they just open up their own store. And I think the
Mm.
licenses are fairly inexpensive. Like, instead of buying a master the way that I did, I believe you can buy the license for like, I'm going to be honest, I don't know. Oh my goodness, how do I not know this? Because I just like purchased this. I haven't gotten started. Like, my attorney, anyways, I'm going to say 20K,
Oh, okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
But that's not the big chunk. The big chunk is the 200 to 250 to put into building everything out, right? So
And
that's
that's on
where the
you.
majority of that's on you.
Okay, let me walk through this since
Hmm.
sometimes you have to explain things like I'm a golden retriever.
It's
So,
okay.
so there's a master lease, right? That you can, a license that
A,
you can buy.
a master, yes. So you buy,
Okay.
it's called a master's. So that's
A
the entire
master's.
territory. The best way to call it. You buy the entire territory. Yes, and all of the licenses that are associated with that territory. My territory is Tennessee, and then I bought some of Kentucky and I bought some of Georgia, right? So anybody who
Okay.
wants to open up a Yonut would go through me. And so you would purchase a license, um, and that license would be something about 20K, right? And then you
Hmm.
purchase that. It could be 15. I really apologize on this one. And then once you purchase that license, then the big majority, the big investment is not the license.
Hmm.
It's the 200 and 250K to then find the location, open up the stores, purchase all of the equipment, purchase the product, and then do the marketing and then open it up.
So
And that
let's say
normally
for
takes 6 months.
okay, 6 months, 20 for the license, 200, 250 for all together, or maybe 250
Right,
plus the 20. And then
right.
what's the projected, cash
Sure.
flow that you would make from one of these kind of franchises?
Yeah. So each location is going to be slightly different on cash flow, right?
Hmm.
So what you're looking for are margins. So on average, I believe the net margin is anywhere from 20 to 25%, depending on how well you run the store. Let's say you, Jesse, decide, hey, I'm going to run the store and I'm going to be the manager here, right? You're going to give yourself
Hmm.
a salary, and that salary obviously cuts into that net margin, but you're giving it to yourself because that's your job, right? But
Hmm.
let's say you're like, hey, I just want to buy this, which is more so me. I just want to purchase this nuts, and then I'm going to hire a manager for 65 to 150. I don't know what they're going to do, right? It ranges. So that maybe that 25% goes down to 20, right? 20%. So now for every $100,000 you make, you get $20,000, right?
And
So
it's pretty
let's
passive then if you hire the people in place.
Yeah, because you have a manager that you're paying to run everything. You just come in and pretend, and then just collect. Like,
Donuts are looking good. Good job.
like you're just like,
Let me
oh,
try a couple.
yeah, come on. I don't know if this is the cold enough ice cream. Um, but yeah, so you go in and you just say hi to everybody and grab a few things, and send your friends, things like that. It surely is, one the hardest part is getting started. It's a bit of a headache because that's the portion that you want to be involved in, right? A
Mhm.
little bit of the design, but again, owning a franchise, you will have full reign, or not full reign, I'm sorry, no reign on the design, right? So
Hmm.
they're going to tell you what colors, what cups, what size, down to like, the eggshell white that's like in the back of, in the back of like the stock room. So don't even worry about it, right?
Is this
That's why
something that?
people buy franchises.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. Is that what drew you to it? Because you're like, this is a business in a box. I get the playbook. I know
Yes.
projections, how much money I'm gonna make. Just keep it simple. Follow the blueprint that
Yes.
works.
Yes. So the truth is, I think it's a great business. I loved it. Like I said, I wouldn't have gotten it had I not. But I wanted, number one, it was as much as I wanted, I paid to play. Like I
Hmm.
paid to play. Yeah. Sorry. I couldn't think of the word right there, but I paid to play. Right. So I wanted the map to all of these things. Right. I wanted the map to how I've never, ever, ever even like I kept getting fired from these franchises I was working for, right?
Now
Cheesecake
you
Factory and all
owed
the
them.
things. so so so
That's funny.
like so I wanted to really understand because I wanted to do better in my business, right? So
Hmm.
the first time I owned these businesses, like I'd mentioned, I didn't really network. I didn't really understand how to do it. I was just mostly home working with my family, right? And that's all I knew for a really long time. So I didn't understand the dynamics of how people hired, how people like ran and made everything systematic. Like even though I'm like an operator and quite an OCD person, it was a great opportunity to see somebody's handbook. I got to look at all the
Hmm.
legal documents. I got to meet all of these people. I mean, incredible people, by the way. That I met somebody that owned 20 joints. I met somebody that owned 200. Was it 200? 100 Bojangles. So you get to meet all of these people that are absolutely incredible, and you learn so much. And the other thing you get to learn too is how people operate and how people run their businesses. The reason why franchises are so, I would say, I'm going to use the word lucrative, but not in like, it's not like, when we do crypto, right? It's like where it's just like 10x in like a year, but then you die for like two, right? And then wait 4 years for the halving. And then it's not like this. It is a perfect avenue for people who want stability, and a lot of these franchises normally survive through ups and downs, through a lot of financial downturns, right? So they know what they're doing, and they've what is not only do they know what they're doing, they know how to teach you how to do it as well, right? I find that to be really valuable. Is It's one thing to know what to do, it's another thing to be able to navigate and teach other people what to do. And so, for example, like if your franchise, and it's really easy math, if your franchise costs you 250K, right? Let's say you're getting a loan for that. Now, that one unit, you make anywhere from about 100, I would say 125 to 200, depending on what location, right? And so the way that, let's say, corporate America works, I know very little, but I do have friends. So, and even the way that, let's say, you know, people in that are starting their own business, right? It's like they're working their butts off over and over and over again. And let's say they're making $100,000. $100,000. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm working 80 hours a week, making $100,000. Like, what the heck? I can't break it. I can't break it. I can't break it. It's like the ceiling, right? When you own a franchise, like let's say your franchise does 100K and you're like, you know what? How about I make 500,000? Let's make 600. Let's make 1 million. Do the math on that. Open up five more.
Hmm.
You open up five more, and it becomes easier and easier and easier math. Now, are you going to have a little bit of ups and downs? Of course you are. So that's what you plan for. But you have all these people around you, and the corporate, if you don't make money, they don't make money, and they work hard to make sure that you're doing the right thing to produce more revenue because they take a cut of your revenue, right? So
They
you
have skin in
have
the game.
all right. So you have people that are invested and have vested interest in you, right?
Yes.
So, like I said, in the Yonuts, right? So if I wanted to do 5 or 600, I would just open 3 or 4 or maybe 5 more. And some stores will produce better, some won't. And and it's all kind of like cost price average. It's the same thing with when I owned real estate. It makes perfect sense why I continue to open up these stores because of cost price average. I
Hmm.
would buy out neighborhoods sometimes. One of these days, I'll tell you how. um, but so let's say hypothetically, like you buy a house for, whatever, $100 here, right?
Hmm.
100,000. I don't know if anybody buys houses for $100. Let's call it 100,000. And then your neighbor drops their price to something happens in the market and, you know, everything goes down 50% and you buy that. And then now your neighbor has the same house for 50,000. It's
Hmm.
okay. So then you buy that house for 50,000 and another house for 50,000 or 65, and you price cost average out. So really you're not buying a house for 100. You have 4 houses for 65, right? And so same thing with stocks, same thing with crypto, same thing with franchises, right? Sometimes
Hmm.
one will produce, sometimes one won't. Not necessarily won't, but it will be a lesser producing property or asset. And then you
Hmm.
just continue to open up more. And you'll get used to it, and your banks will help you with that. I think probably maybe my next couple, I might have my bank lend to me, but um, I don't know. I'm slightly, I was in the Dave Ramsey era where it's like buy everything in cash, and even though I know that that's not how investing works, I think there's always going to be a small part of me that's like traditionally like that. So I'm
Yeah.
going to naturally gravitate more to paying
Hmm.
for things than to leverage. So I am not a risky, high leverage individual at all. And I believe because of that, it's caused very little stress. I'm consistently in the past in my 20s, consistently cash poor though. But
Hmm.
I've learned how to balance that. Yeah. Oh, I'll use that word balance now.
There you go.
Yeah, there.
Well,
Full
let me
circle.
ask. Let me ask you this as we wrap up. If because now you got people intrigued, they're like, "Oh, this franchising sounds a lot better than I thought." So, what would be like step one and step two if someone was interested in like diving deeper into learning about how to buy a license, how to get started with franchising?
Okay, so before we get into that, let me show you the contrast of what I have now. So I have franchise and then I have what looks like a franchise, but it's all corporate owned. So let me explain
Okay.
the difference to that. What corporate owned means is that one entity, owns all of the locations. So I have 5 locations, 6 right now, including my e-com, right? It's a warehouse that people can go in and out and purchase from. So how that works is I run every single location like it's an individual business. So for example, I have this corporate account and my executive team, right? They don't work in an individual store, right? So I don't work in an individual store. My GM doesn't, my project manager doesn't, our assistant doesn't, and our marketing doesn't, right? They all work online or they pop from store to store, right? So the question is, who pays them? Which location pays them, right? So that was an issue. And I remember in the beginning, I didn't, again, this is why it's so important, why it was important for me personally to purchase the franchise. I learned about, having a budget for, it's called our corporate account. So each store, depending on how much they make, pays into that corporate account. So depending on their revenue. So there's a percentage of revenue from each location that goes into the corporate account. So then that corporate account pays for, like, for example, we use our POS system is Square. So we use Square as a POS system, but Square doesn't, it, like, I can't remember how much we pay for it, but like 600 or 700, right? But it's for all 6 locations. So you're like, well, they don't split up the bill one per location. So who pays for that? So then what we did was we would have a business account. And again, we would pay all of the bills that are associated to corporate things. If that location, the location that I'm in Carlsbad, let's say this location has internet or water or rent or, repairs, that bank account pays for that with their revenue. So does that make sense? So even though it's still treated like a franchise, it's not. One of the things though that we haven't really worked through is with some of our inventory. We grew so fast that we weren't able to navigate through inventory quick enough. And that's something that I've always had challenges with, right? So, um, you know, essentially some of our locations is just natural alternatives to like alcohol and opioids and antidepressants and Adderall and all of those things. But our other location has that, and it has a sober bar component in it. So you can go in and have tonics and things like that that feels like, you're drinking alcohol, but it doesn't have all of like the side effects of it, right? And people ended up loving that so much that then we had to turn around and pivot and turn all of our other locations into the same thing. And when we did that, we had the biggest nightmare in inventory because we were like grabbing stuff from every store. Things were like running out. We're like, just do it. I know, and we'll figure out the accounting later. We never figured out the accounting. I just called it a loss. We just took the revenue. And so, things like that, right? But you wouldn't be
Mm.
able to do this in a franchise. Like, you're not going to, take a bunch of inventory from one location, take it to another and not account for it, right? Um, but
So
and then
where would you find that opportunity? The corporate, different are they still considered franchises?
they're not considered franchises. These are startups. So you would have to start this up yourself. Um,
So
here
is
is,
there a
and
big playbook that you got to start this up or no? Okay,
no,
so this is not
I
franchising.
this is not franchising. I would go to these seminars and I would ask all these questions. I mean, I would ask the most invasive questions. Who cares? It's just like you'll never see the people again. Just how much do
I can
you
see you
make?
doing this.
Yeah, 100%. I will do it with a smile, buy them a drink, and ask them exactly how much they make. Do it.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like, genuinely, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do? Right? So so with places like our place, right? That means that you won't have the opportunity for a real playbook, right? So for example, the colors on the wall or on the floor or this picture back here, right? What we realize is that, I mean, it was a shit show. Every location was so different. And so 7 months ago, we made each location too unique. We made it unique to the
Mm,
neighborhood, and that's where we made our mistake. And
not
so, like I
scalable.
said, it's not scalable. Definitely not scalable. Fun, but not
Right.
scalable. And then it wasn't cohesive. So people didn't know that they were in the same company, right?
Mm,
So they would maybe go down the street and go to a competitor because it's like, whatever, they're still taking Kratom or they're still taking Kava and so essentially what happened was I'm like, absolutely not. Let's redo it. So we did the project. I would say about a year ago. Um, we took we figured out what worked, what didn't, got rid of. We're talking about everything. The pen that you use in this location is the same pen you'll use in Tennessee, and nothing changes. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you open up a drawer here where our erasers are, or our paper, or our labels, if you go down to La Mesa or Solana Beach or Orange County or Tennessee, it's the same exact thing. We have the same smells every year about the same time. We might miss it by like maybe like a few weeks, like because we're running out of candles. Music's the exact same. It's ran. We run all of our Alexas online, so
Mm-hmm.
if you come here at this time, you'll probably hear the same music in Nashville, same exact time. So we have playlists, um, everything. I mean, everything is exactly the same. Nothing, and there's variations based on the size, right? Because of
Mm-hmm.
course, you might have 10 tables here and four over there. And then one of our locations has a patio, so we have patio furniture, but all of our, like all of the flowers and stuff, exactly the same every
Decor
location.
is all the same.
Decor,
So
all the same.
so what's the 5-year goal for you? Are you just
But
scaling? Like how many of these do you want? Are you gonna pivot into something else? Like I'm curious.
5 year, so hopefully it doesn't take me 5 years, but I have a 3 year goal to selling this company.
What does
Yep.
that look like? You want
Um,
X number of locations?
so we're actually, we decided that we're going to keep the location at 6, but we're growing our ecom. Um, I do a lot of digital marketing. I guess people didn't know that I started learning it a few years ago because of the industry that I'm in. You can't do Google ads, you can't do Facebook ad, Instagram ads. So I did a lot of SEO, white hat, gray hat, black hat, all the hats. Um, so that's what I've been doing is I have never done an ecom before. So it's fascinating. And we threw out our e-commerce just to our current customers. Um, I today, just alone today, I scrapped the website and rebuilt it. Um, I do that multiple times. This is my eighth or ninth iteration on the website to see what works, what doesn't work, and I put in about 140 products through this store to see what works and what doesn't work. Right. So when people walk in here, they have a perfect experience. To be honest with you,
Mm,
it's like we have the best quality products. It's because starting off we didn't, and that's the god honest truth. I had to do about 140 iterations to make our products perfect. Now we have about 50 SKUs, um, just fantastic products all around. Same thing with our website, right? You have to scrap what doesn't work as fast as you can. Like
hmm.
this, like you kind of have to do it like a teenage boy, just fast and hard. You know what I mean? Like,
Great analogy.
well, it's true, right? Because you're in a fast-paced industry, but also every second that you keep a product that's not working, it costs you. Number
Mm,
one, it just doesn't cost you revenue; it costs you opportunity costs, right? So things that don't work, I put that thing on sale, like 90%, give it to people, and I move on. I move the hell on.
mm,
Like, it's like, you know, and so you just keep running through it and running through it. And then eventually you get your baseline, and from your baseline, you can build like really good products around it. But you always have like your basics, right? And
mm-hmm.
so we're gonna keep that. I'm doing the ecom. Um, you know, I think it did really well for what it was. We didn't do any advertisement. The website was broken about 90% of the time. About 90% of the time. And so um, what we ended up doing is like we put it out, advertise it to our customer. I think we did like 100K or something the first like few months. So it
Wow.
wasn't much,
Mm,
but it was a start. And then we got a ton of feedback, what worked, what didn't work, what product they liked online. The fascinating thing is what people like online might not be what people like in store. And then online, you have to capture people in a different way. Like when you walk in here,
Mm-hmm.
you have the music, like Frank
Right.
Sinatra, country music is playing. You have candles that smell like Christmas all year round, ambiance. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You don't have that opportunity online. What you have is user interface, right? And then you have to figure out what people like about your product, and you have to give it to people as fast as you can, but in a
Mm-hmm.
way that they'll be willing to accept that. It's almost like when that pop-up goes up and you're like 15%, give me all of your info. It's like, no thanks.
Right.
And you have to know when to even do that, right? So it's important, and so it's about timing. Being online is about timing versus like in store, it's about experience. Like it's a different kind of experience. So yeah.
Absolutely. Man, what a
So
journey
I'll
from go ahead.
oh no, so you were asking me what my 5-year plan is,
Yeah.
planning to sell the company in 3 years, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and just kind of moving on and hoping to have a family.
I love it. So from getting,
Yeah.
being unemployable, getting fired from all these different, places early on to a tech startup to real estate, I think you said like 70 properties to then getting into some donut franchising to starting your own startup with man, and then e-commerce. You've done so many things. It's super exciting to hear this story and this journey. Last thing, if someone was interested and wanted to reach out and connect with you, one, are you open to it? And then two, how would they do that?
That is so interesting, Jesse. I
You're
knew
like,
you were going to ask
actually,
that.
no.
Actually, no. I'm an incredibly private person. However, I'm always at my stores, and of course, you have our online. So I own all of the Kratom Kava bars in San Diego and Orange County. So I'm here 7 days a week essentially, and I work here too. So normally, if people want to talk to me or get in contact, it's usually through the store
Hmm.
or through our ecom sites. So
Awesome.
most of my
Well,
info is on the ecom.
can
Yeah.
I put like those links in the podcast description so people can go if they're in
Yeah.
town or online to get some products?
Of course. Of course. Of course. Yeah. And you're
Well,
going to
this
have
has
to
been
visit me in Nashville.
no, honestly, I'm gonna plan that ASAP. So we're gonna talk.
I know. I know you have to. So
I'm excited. I've actually never been, and one of my best friends is also out there. So there's no reason. I got two people I love now in Nashville.
I know. I know. So, and I live in a hotel now. So that's really fun.
That's awesome. Well, Blair, it
Yeah.
was incredible. I appreciate you so much. Jesse Ray, Growth House Podcast, and we're out.